Well, what a great Sunday this is, my dear ones. And I'm tickled, so very tickled at Mark's sharing. Because last night and early this morning, I spent 6 hours in the company of my Angelou. Loved it. No idea what time it was, and I looked at the clock and it said 2 a.m. So with a grin, I thought, okay, I better get some sleep because the human body needs it, and I might stand in front of everybody and fall asleep on my feet if I don't. So I did. Now, you see, Maya Angelou is the inspiration for today's And Now I Rise. And also, she concludes our whole month of reaching higher. We've going through this journey of reaching higher all these days of this month. And in order to reach higher, you have to rise up. To rise up. So it's a very phenomenal and wonderful and incredible thing that you can know this and I can know this, that it's given to me to rise up, not just on eagle's wings, which we seem to think is a bit impossible, but it's a lovely thought. We think that too much of the time. But what we're going to be asked today and this week is, come on now. Time to be finished with the ashes of the worn-out phoenix. Time to be finished with the ashes of old fixed ideas and tired out emotions. And to jump up on that newborn phoenix and rise up in fiery splendor, blazing a trail of glory as we do so. Because you can and I can, and darn it, we're going to do it someday or another. Why not now? Well, we will when we're tired enough, fed up enough, discouraged enough, had enough of inertia with the same old, and the circling of constant and continuous similar conditions and so on. That's when we're ready, because we can only do it when we're ready. Nobody telling me it is possible can do it for me. Even all the great stories of people like Maya Angelou. One of my greatest heroes, I have to say, she is one of my great mentors. Incredible individualized expression of sovereignty. A woman who knew who she was, but beyond that, she knew what was in her, so that when somebody would call her Maya, she could say, Dr. Maya, please. And if you're wondering why I'm requesting that, it's because I am doing my work and I'm earning my way. And if you can see that in me, you can know it for yourself in you, and you will do your work and you will earn your way too. It's a reminder to you of what you can accomplish and what you can achieve if you do the work. If you're willing to know the moreness of yourself. Asked what her spiritual ideology was, what she followed spiritually speaking, she said immediately, unity. She came across unity many decades ago. She fell in love with the writings and the concepts, and she studied it for the rest of her life. But within that unity, she would also declare herself to be a conscious Christian. Because unity includes all. But the appeal to individuals is different, isn't it? So this Christian energy had an appeal to her, as it does to many of us. The sweet, undiluted, true teaching of the Christed Jesus. I'm not talking about organized Christianity. Remember, Jesus never knew he was a Christian, never had any desire to be anything other than what he was, an iconoclastic Jew. One who labored under the tradition he was in, and instead of deserting it, he desired to add to it, bring out its true essence and fragrance. Of course, he was killed for it, but he was willing to pay that price because he knew no one ever dies. Maya Angelou made up her mind that she would die decades before she did. She came to terms with it. She was comfortable with it. And having made the decision that one day she would die, she decided to live the very best life she could live until then. Do as much as she could possibly do to know herself and to share whatever it was she had to share. And she did that too. And I love the piece, And Still I Rise. I was meandering in and out of all of her writings and so on through the night. And I'm thinking, every time I come to look at Maya Angelou, I think, oh my God, how did she do it? What an incredible force. What an astounding example of what all of us can accomplish and achieve, in spite of any kind of difficulty. And the interesting thing for her is that no matter what her experience was, she never thought less of herself. And everything brought her to the next step, and the next step, and the next step, and the next step. And all of the things that other people amongst us would condemn her for and judge as wicked and sinful, she used as amazing information she had gleaned with regard to how human life is and could be totally understanding and compassionate and forgiving and all the rest of it as a result. What did she say was the greatest of virtues? Does anybody know? She said the greatest of virtues is courage. Because without courage, you can't do anything else. You must first have courage. Courage, an awesome force. And without it, there's not much movement forward. It's that thing, exchange your wishbone for a backbone. Measure up. Get up out of the stickiness of inertia, the inertia of all the negative things you've ever heard about yourself or told yourself about yourself. Get up out of it. Rise up out of it. And now I rise because there's not one of us in this room that's not suffering from some kind of inertia. And it's so uncomfortable, to say the least. Try and get your feet up and you're stuck. Sticky. Horrible it is. I remember how horrible it is when I stuck to the tarmac in a hot summer's night in Palm Springs. Couldn't get my shoe out. That was just my shoe. Maya Angelou. She came, she saw, she conquered and took off. And in her circumstances, she never felt that she was a victim, ever. She had no time for self-pity. It's just such a waste of life. She was asked how she was in teaching her students. She was asked, are you a hard teacher? Yes, she says, I am, but I'm kind too. she was the one that found Tupac ranting and raving and cussing and swearing and so on. I think it was over in one of the studios in Hollywood. Nobody could go near him. So she walked up to him, didn't want to know, he didn't want to know, he didn't want to know. And she just stayed there. He ranted on, cussing on. There was a moment of silence. She put her hand on his shoulder and she said, "Son, do you not know that we need you?" Do you not know how important you are? Anyway, it ended up where he's crying on her shoulder and so on. There was wisdom in the woman, but there was more than wisdom in the woman. There was courage. And there was a deep, deep knowing. I of myself do nothing. It is the power and the presence within me that doeth the work. That's how she could do what she did. She was a linguist. She spoke several languages. She was not only a poet, she was a dancer, a singer. Oh, you name it. She could do it if she made up her mind to it. But the thing about Maya Angelou is she used up all her gifts. She didn't hide any under a bushel. And I love the way when she speaks, she very often opens it up singing something. And she says, even though I can't sing, which is a lie, she sings very nicely. She sings, she dances, she writes, she teaches. Oh, you name it, she can do it. Some of my very best teachers come from our origins, Africa. One of the very first saints I was introduced to was Saint Martin, the first black saint ever in the Catholic Church. It's the bed of wisdom, humanity. Gosh, when I sit back and I think about where we are today, if it wasn't so tragic, I would roar laughing. And I would say, oh, what a fool's game we all play. We're clueless. How we judge and how we judge and how we judge when judgment is not ours at all. How we decide on who's who and what's what. Your address, what you drive, the house you live in, the clothes you wear, the look of you, the color of you. Can you believe in 2021 we're still doing that? And then think, Gandhi lived in a little hut. Nothing in it except two things, a picture of Jesus and the three monkeys who see no evil, hear no evil, and speak no evil. That's what he had in his little hut. And as they say, it took millions of dollars to keep him in his poverty. Mother Teresa, same. What did she have? 2 saris and a bucket. That's all the nuns had to their credit, their name. They needed 2 saris. They needed a bucket to wash one today so it could be dried for tomorrow, and so on. Very simple are the needs of those who are unfolding in wisdom and grace. The stuff of the world becomes less and less and less important to them. And instead of polishing up their lives with gems and valuables and art and all the rest of it, they're polishing up their inner souls with a splendor that couldn't be compared with on this plane. And don't you notice yourself as you grow in wisdom and grace and get a little bit longer in the tooth, you stop needing things and wanting things. In fact, you start giving them away. After all the years of collecting, you start to downsize. You hear people talking about downsizing all the time. And the buying, the getting, and the spending becomes not as attractive as it used to be for the high it gave when you were in the process of it. As the poet said, getting and spending, we lay waste our powers. Little we see in nature that as ours, we have given our hearts away a sordid boon. I quote that often. Because in my high school years, I learned that. And it stuck to me for some reason through my life. It comes back to me now and again. Getting and spending, we lay waste our powers. Maya Angelou always said, when you get, you give. When you know something, you teach. You share it. You pass it on. When you get, you give. When you know something, you teach it. Through example, you and I could be the greatest flow of life, spiraling upward and outward all the time, if we could get that simple truth. When you have, you give. What you know, you teach. Now, the getting for you and for me anymore is never about getting for ourselves and getting to keep. It's about getting the wisdom. In all your getting, get wisdom, Scripture says, and sharing it. And the foibles and the sparklies and all the distractions of the baubles, bangles, and beads and stuff and things and toys don't have the appeal at all they used to have for those who are committed to growing in wisdom and grace. As I learned when I was in my convent experience, I owned nothing. Everything I used or had was for my use only, but I owned nothing. This pen is to my use. This habit I'm wearing is to my use. The habits were passed on, cleaned and passed on to the next one coming up. Everything was to our use, and it's the same here. Nothing is ours forever. It's ours for a time. And you get to take good care of whatever it is you have and not be like the guy who buries his talent and doesn't use it. Then he loses his talent, and not only does he lose his talent, which is a pile of money, but he's derided as a result of not using it. What are you not using? What do you have that you could use and you're not using? Ask yourself that question this week. What do I have to share that I'm not sharing? What do I have to use that I'm not using? Oh my gosh, the very thought of it makes me want to fall down in a faint, because I have so much stuff that I don't need in my house anymore, and I'd be only too willing if I could find the time and the energy to sift through it. Because I made the stupid mistake of not putting everything in their place, and I'm going to have to go through a pile of boxes to make sure I'm not throwing out important documents or photos or stuff like that. Because I almost did that once. I said, oh, to heck with it, it's all going, and the next thing the lid fell off, this fell on the floor, and there were these important documents. And I thought, oh my God, you have no idea how many magazines and books I have. And I'm used to shoving something into a book. If I'm distracted, I'm called away. But I know that's there for me to do, and it's mine for me to do, and I know it'll get done. The when of it, I'm not too sure about. But I just do a little pleading around that. That's when I go back to my roots. do a little bit of pleading, and then I slap myself and say, get up off your spiritual derriere and figure out a way to do this. Because there's no one else coming. It's mine to do. Now there was a woman who took her life and everything in it, drank that to the last drop, and went away accomplished into her next experience. And do you know what she answered to when she was asked, well, what name would you give God? And she went, all. That was her name for God. All. All life. All. And she had this thing about knowing that one day she was going to die. And she had come to terms with it. And that, coming to terms with that, gave her the impetus to spend every moment she had accomplishing whatever it was she was here to accomplish. She also talks about the silver lining in every cloud a lot. Doesn't matter what the bad thing seems to be, in there, there's treasure. But you have to find it. And if you study her life, it wasn't easy. Far from it. There's much in her life that could be judged and condemned. But she embraced it all. Provided her with great experience. She embraced the whole lot of it. And she knew better things were ahead in the transformation out of the caterpillar into the butterfly. Do any of you thoroughly, when you think about the beauty of a butterfly, think about the horrible challenges the caterpillar had in order to get that thing up in the air and free at last? And how the caterpillar was willing to give up what he thought was his life, her life, by entering into this cocoon, this grave, squishing itself until it could breathe no longer. And just when the caterpillar thought it was the end, puff, the butterfly. Now, where are you in your process with regard to the metamorphosis of your caterpillar and the butterfly that you are? Help it along if you don't think you're the butterfly already. So if you cannot fly, ask yourself why. And listen for the answer. And know it will be very crystal clear to you, for I am knowing for each and every one of us here today, something great, amazing is in store. Not tomorrow, but now. For anybody who has the courage to be open to saying yes to it and knowing my good is there for me and I am supposed to have it, as is our teaching. The power for good in the universe greater than I am, and I can use it. Question is, how am I using it or not? What's it going to be for this coming day and this coming week? What do I want to be? What do I want to think? And what do I want to feel? Because you have the sovereign charge over all of that. And so have I. And there's nothing of a wimp about you. Nothing. You're a sovereign being. You may be crawling along like a caterpillar now, but my goodness me, your true accomplishment is to be the butterfly that you are. So gather up your wings and soar. Gather up your wings and soar. Flex them. Make sure that you believe that they're working. Fly. 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 Taste the sweetness of the air. Breathe for the first time in that way. And no matter what crosses your path, you say, I know who I am, and you, sure as heck, are not the boss of me. So you're here for some reason, okay. But you're not going to stay, and you're certainly not going to set your tent up because I don't identify with you, and I'm not in agreement with you. And if you flash that light anymore, I will turn into a butterfly, and I will fly back there, and I will tickle you with my wings. We're always in a hurry, and I know they're doing their job. But yet, spirit will not be rushed. And I'm not saying that anybody should give me any more opportunity to go over time than anybody else. But I tell you, something happened with regard to Maya Angelou and me 6 hours later. And so I had to finish what it was she wanted to say here today. She is a great, great example of how we can all be. And we will be getting her picture, and she will be going up with the other pictures in Richelieu Hall, along with Lala. Because if she can do it, we certainly all can do it. And that's the truth, and so it is. And now you can come. You know, that's sometimes when you get to feel the essence of somebody, whether it's your mother or a Maya Angelou or somebody, but sometimes you do. And it's lovely. Those are the kinds of company I love to be into at times. And now is the time to be grateful and to do what Maya Angelou said. Don't go through life with receiving mitts on both hands, because sometimes it's good to throw something back. I know the baseball people will like that. So let's take our gift between our amazing and blessing hands and say, divine love consecrates my gift. It goes forth to heal, to bless, and to prosper. All who give and all who receive. I rejoice in the sharing of my good, and I release my gift with love. And so it is. Thank you.
Good morning again, everyone. This is a time in our service when we share our mission statement. For this center, it is to honor your presence, to nurture your spirit, and to enrich the life of all we serve. And we check in with our members and friends who help us to know how we're doing, and this is one of the letters. I love the science of mind, and I love our services. I also read the magazine and other reading that helps me feel better about things, because these days there are a lot of things that can be distracting. I read something that said something like, when you ask in prayer for something, be prepared to receive it and to keep alert, because it might come from unexpected places. I know I've heard that before or something like it, but this time, for some reason, I noticed it more. I have been wanting this new thing for myself. It's not that important, really, but I haven't found it yet, and I've been wondering. And then one day I met up with a friend when I was out, and she had someone with her who just started talking about the information about the thing I wanted. I was so surprised. I find myself still thinking about how amazing that seems to me to be, and yet that is the way it works. And I thank you for reminding me.
That's why I love to get those messages in from our folks who are sharing with us, because, you know, it gives the rest of us that oomph, and we can realize that it's working in the lives of others. Why can't it work in my life too? Because it can, and so it can. So I would love us all if we made up our minds this week to rise up. If we made up our minds this week to look for that treasure in the clouds, Find the rainbow. Find the rainbow in the cloud. Come up with some sense of yourself that's going to push you into a decision you'll keep. And go forward confidently, courageously, knowing you're not going alone, knowing you're never, ever left to your own devices. But the power and the presence of Spirit within you, when it's invited, will certainly support you. And that's the truth, but don't take my word for it. Test it. Test it out and see what happens. Oh, the places you'll go, as Dr. Seuss would say. And now we're going to have our prayer. And we're going to focus this prayer on everybody who's lost confidence in themselves, everybody who's tired out and worn out, worried, not knowing where to turn or how life will get better. We're going to know for them their courage and their inner wisdom to guide them, so that that can get released and they can be uplifted and have the courage to keep going, no matter what. So for everybody who's in pain of any kind, who's suffering in any way, who's scared and frightened and seems to have no one or nowhere to turn, we're going to know it ain't so. And that what we know in them, for them, is going to set the healing rising. That's what we're knowing. That's the power of your knowing. And so we pray. I know divine love enfolds me, divine light leads me, divine life lives in me, divine wisdom inspires me, divine compassion expresses through me, and divine power protects me. All that I am is Spirit's life and expression. It is good and very good, with deep joy and generosity filling me. I go forward now in sacred service, supporting a compassionate world that works for all. Next week we'll have a little tent that we can stick up there in case the sun is too bright and too hot and all the rest of it. And it's good to talk to each other and to catch up with each other. And for those of you who are going home now, have a splendid week. And know it'll pass very quickly, and soon we'll be all here together again. And so be your own great good self and trust yourself. And before we have our peace song, I want to thank everybody looking in. I want to thank everybody in the room for your loyalty and your support of this center and your safeguarding of its legacy for generations to come. We are on the move. We are ready and open and receptive to what it is we need to be right now as community. And very soon, our sharing circles will start. I'll let you know more about that. And we will come together in small groups, and we will put our hearts and minds together to see what it is we think we need to be to meet the needs of today, as well, of course, as meeting our own needs. And a new class will be starting very, very soon, and the information will come to you this week. So be glad and rejoice that you know the little that you do know. It's more than most. And be open to knowing more, because we can. And now we're going to fill ourselves with peace and send it out there in our peace song. And we thank Andy for all his wonderful music. Makes such a difference. And we're delighted with all our musicians who appear and share their talents with us too, and the children's choir. We love that children's choir. So now we are going to have our peace song. right, my dears. Have a splendid week.